Just for clarity, a patent is a legal monopoly. It lasts for about 20 years after you file your patent application. This is key. Patents do not necessarily give you the right to practice your invention. You have a patent for a better mousetrap. You may not actually be able to commercialize that because someone else might have a patent on some element that is going to block you. So what a patent actually is, it's a roadblock. You can use a patent to block others from practicing in that space. So you can stop anyone else from making your better mousetrap, but you may not necessarily be able to go out and sell your better mousetrap. I will say that patents, it's a constitutionally protected in the US Patent Office, and patent protection is available in nearly every country in the world. Lots of differences in terms of some of the nuance, but fundamentally you can get patent protection for your invention in almost every country in the world. I just want to stand on a soapbox for a minute and there's a lot of pharma, biotech. We're not necessarily everybody's favorite because drugs are expensive. And I just want to explain why we need patents and why this sort of is really important for the whole industry. So it can take over $1 billion to bring a drug to market. You've got to justify that invention, that cost of the investment. You've got to be able to get that money back and hopefully get a profit. So to do it, you've got to have market exclusivity. You've got to be able to prevent Joe Schmo from making your drug and undercutting your price before your patents expire. Now, I said that patents last about 20 years. I just want to clarify, that's from the time the patents are filed. So most drugs that go to market, those patents were filed many years before the drug actually was approved and is being sold. So it is excruciatingly rare for a drug to have a full 20 years of patent protection. It's more common that the patents were filed 5, 10, or even 15 years before a drug is finally approved. So it's all about securing that protection, honestly, for just a few years after the drug finally goes to market. So again, patents give the right to exclude others, and it's for this limited amount of time. Without these patents, a free rider, some fly-by-night company could potentially make and sell your drug, rely on your approvals, and you can't even recoup your development costs, much less make any sort of a profit. And so these patents are really a key asset. And it's really important to understand that patents that cover our current products, they actually protect the development of future drugs, because if you can't make a profit, you've got no money to invest in the development of future drugs. You can't buy supplies, you can't hire more scientists, you can't get new equipment. It's really, this is my soapbox, and having said that, I'm done. The drug manufacturers may be charging a lot, but there's a reason, and this is also why patents are important. So what's patent eligible? You can't patent just everything, right? So what can be patented? A composition of matter, for example, the actual drug, your small molecule or your protein. Machines and apparatuses. So in the context of drug development, these might be devices for how you deliver your drug, a unique syringe or an auto injector. Improve how you use the drug, right? That's also important. So you may see from time to time a very old drug, they discover it could be used for something really unexpected. That new use might be patent. And of course, improvements. You make a better drug, you make a better device. Improvements are often considered patentable. Things that are just never patentable. Human beings, transgenic human being, not going to be patentable. In many countries, medical treatment is actually not patentable. So a method of treating a patient having a particular disease with your molecule, it's not going to be patentable. That varies from country to country. Mathematical methods and algorithms, never patentable. Now, certain uses of an algorithm or a formula might be patentable, but that's going to be in the context of an entire method, right? So a method, say, there's a famous case about a method for curing rubber. that used a particular mathematical algorithm. You've also got laws and principles of nature. E equals mc squared, love Einstein, not patentable. And mental processes, anything that only requires for you to think about something is not patentable. Okay, so what does the patent process look like? First, you have to identify your potential patentable invention. Key elements. So not only does it have to be patentable from a legal perspective, like it can't be a human being, as I said, it can't be a mathematical formula, assuming it meets the basic requirements for what's patentable, it also actually needs to be useful. It's got to have an actual use. It has to be new. Somebody cannot have done it before. And to the extent that you're always standing on the shoulders of those who came before you in the scientific realm, it needs to be not obvious. I give you just a sort of generic example. A designer, right? A mechanical designer designs a new shape of a bike frame that has a really awesome advantage. And the examples are for the bike frame is painted red. So that really unique geometry, that might be a patentable invention. But if I come later and I say, oh, but he didn't describe a matte black finish, and that matte black finish can repel dirt, so that's why it's patentable. That's probably going to be considered pretty gosh darn obvious and will not be patentable. As you're looking at the invention and you're thinking, this seems really close to the quote unquote prior art, you might need to consider, is there something surprising about the invention? Is there something unexpected? Does it address an unmet need? Because all of those factors might help you realize it's actually not obvious. We've got something that's considered quote unquote non-obvious. So useful, new, non-obvious. And then the other thing you want to consider is the invention actually ready for patenting? In the biotech space, we typically have more than just an idea, right? It's more than just like a mechanical drawing. You might be able to fully draw that out on paper and never even build it. But in our space, we need to actually make the molecules, and we need to show in some sort of model system that they appear to work the way we say. So if you're looking at making an anti-cancer drug, you should show at least in a petri dish that you can kill cancer cells using your drug. Better yet, some sort of an animal model. So we rarely see things where you just have an idea. We generally have a full reduction to practice. The other thing to consider is, are they actually still working on it? Is this your lead molecule, or are they still tinkering? If they're still tinkering, you might want to wait. Another thing that in the biotech space, pharma space, you have to think about, is there a plan to talk about it outside the organization? And there was a paradigm shift, particularly in the US. It used to be first to invent, now it's first to file. I will say that for most biotech companies, that was a difference with very little meaning, because outside of the US, it's always been a first to file. And so if you go out and talk about it before you file, you're done. You can't file your patent application. There's a little bit of grace period in the United States and in a few other countries, but for the most part, you can just write it off because you've already described it to the public. And there's another caveat when you're in the biotech space. If you're looking for a partner and you haven't filed a patent application and you make an offer for sale, that starts a time clock ticking, and you've got about a year to file before you're going to be excluded from filing. So these are all things that you consider. And then you prepare and you file your patent application. Pretty straightforward. It gets examined by the patent office. And then hopefully at the end of this prosecution, this arguing back and forth, you get a patent granted. So now you've got your patent granted. What can you do? Again, it's not a use permit. You cannot necessarily just go out and practice your invention. What you absolutely can do is block anyone else from doing it. So if two people might have the right to exclude others, so there was a pre-existing application on some element of your mousetrap that you didn't change, and you've got your new cool thingamajig that makes that mousetrap better, the previous people who invented the one little component, they can stop you from selling the mousetrap that has your cool thingamajig, right? So you guys are going to have a conversation and maybe they want to license your IP or you can license theirs, and then you can go and sell. So this patent does give you the right to stop others. You can then exercise your patent rights by either selling or licensing your patent or suing people for money. Oh no, you owe us all kinds of money. So that's the classic patent wars. So that's a really high level overview. I'm going to dive in a little bit about patent applications and what they look like. Patent applications have to do three things, and they have to do these three things exceptionally well. They have to describe the invention. They have to enable the invention. And by that, we mean they have to enable someone else with a similar scientific background to pick up that patent and actually reproduce the work. They've got to be able to make your invention and use it. If your application does not describe it in enough detail, you're done. You're not going to get where you need to go. And the absolute most important part is the claims. These are always at the end, and they specifically call out all the elements that make your invention. And they help somebody to understand, if I do X, Y, and Z, am I infringing this patent or am I outside the scope of this patent? They have a very formulaic format. There's a bibliography, it's nuts and bolts. Who are the inventors? What's the title? What's the filing date? Application numbers are assigned by the patent office. So it's going to have all those nuts and bolts. It may or may not have any drawings or figures. In the biotech space, figures are almost always present because that's how you're presenting the scientific results. It'll have some sort of a background. They tend to be short. It'll have a brief summary of the invention. The summary of the invention is typically regular language of what's in the claims. Okay, so that's what that looks like. If you have figures, you'll describe those figures. You'll have classic figure legends. I'm sure you've all at least helped to write a scientific paper at this point. And then you've got a detailed description. And this is what really, we call it, breathes the life into the claims. This is when you describe what is the invention? How do you make it? How do you use it? You'll hopefully have some ideas about alternatives. You'll have your actual, hopefully, working examples. But if you don't, at least a prophetic example in enough detail that someone could actually do that experiment and see the result. And then, of course, the claims. And we'll get into the claims in a lot more detail as we go on, but they're really the heart of the application. And I will say that in the claims in particular, every choice of word, every choice of punctuation can make a difference if you're ever in litigation. So this is where everybody spends a lot of time really thinking about word choice and how you put those claims together. So this is literally what a patent looks like. This is the infamous coffee sleeve. Who knew it was patented? I didn't actually know that until I started preparing materials for this. But yeah, this is your classic patent sleeve. Oh, sorry. Here you can see this is really all of the nuts and bolts, that bibliography. Here's the inventor, the title, you've got your patent number, the date it was filed, nuts and bolts.